You. Yes, you and you and you and you and you are welcome here. No matter what you have experienced in the past, no matter what awaits you in the future, you are welcome here. And especially, whether you believe in God all of the time, some of the time, or none of the time, you are welcome here. This is a community of open minds, loving hearts, and willing hands. Let us sing each other into presence with our opening song.
Stand if you like, and we'll sing this round a few times. Sing as you know and figure it out if you don't. It's not in the Teal hymn book, so we're just going to learn it together if it's new. Dona nobis pacem pacem. Dona nobis 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 pacem. Let's do it again. Dona nobis pacem pacem. Dona nobis 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 pacem. One more. Dona nobis pacem pacem. Dona nobis 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 pacem. That was beautiful.
As we gather this morning, let us pause and acknowledge that the ground upon which we gather is the ancestral and current home of the Shoshone, Paiute, Goshute, and Ute tribes. With humility for the ways in which we have unwittingly participated in the harms perpetuated in the past and present, we seek now to learn a new way forward. We begin to partner, to ally and to witness with our Indigenous siblings and friends the bringing forth of a new sacred dream of a community restored to fullness and a world healed to a greater wholeness. Good morning. My name is Scott Renshaw. My pronouns are he, him, and his. Welcome to all gathered in the sanctuary here and those at home in our virtual audience. We extend an especially warm welcome to those of you who are new, however you choose to define new, whether it's a first, second, third, or returning after a while. We are so glad you are here with us, and we look forward to getting to know you better. We have a couple of real brief announcements. We love this community through the gifts of our time and talent and treasure. If you would like to deepen your journey with us, we invite you to consider joining one of our teams or committees. Currently, we are seeking folks for stewardship, welcoming, and pastoral care teams, among others. Please see Reverend Lora or the respective committee chairs for these teams for more information. The flyer at the welcome table has contact information listed by team. We also wanted to let you know that we are going to be starting our pledge and stewardship campaign for the 2023-2024 church year soon. Please keep your eye on the announcements in happenings, in the listserv and other means so that you can find out more about how we are going to be taking part in that. Let us now take a moment to fully arrive and welcome one another with joy. Please share the warmth of community with one another.
It is good to be together and to share and delight in seeing familiar faces and in new faces this morning. I'm so glad you got here before the snow started today. I am the Reverend Lora Young, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am just delighted to see so many of you this morning. This morning, we are beginning a new worship series, a new inquiry as a community. Our theme for the next few weeks is vulnerability, a peeling back of the layers, so to speak, to reveal, discover, and explore what connects us most deeply to ourselves and to one another. It has been written by many people that the path of vulnerability requires both courage and strength, and that when walked with a sense of faith and integrity, bears the fruits of wholeheartedness, authenticity, and joy. This work is always purposeful, but it is not linear. It is focused, but it is resistant to specific outcomes. As we all know, our souls do not follow an external template or timeline. Thus, our focus image this month is that of the onion, that humble and delicious and cry-producing vegetable that is so wonderful at unlocking the richness of life. So, by Lora Maltovsky, who writes the following about our humble onion. Go inside an onion, she writes, deeper and deeper, cut through the many layers, and cry, and cry. When you reach the center, when there are no more layers, you will be as deep as possible in your pain. Stay inside the onion for a few days and cry away your tears. Let them make the onion soft and sweet. Then come out, eyes and nose dripping, exhausted, ready to go on. So let us light our chalice together in community. Perhaps, Scott, you can light the chalice for us. Those at home are invited to light a chalice at home and use the chat box to say which street you are on. Our chalice this morning is lit in this sanctuary on Highland Avenue. If you'd like to say our chalice lighting words with me, you may do so. They're printed in your order of service, or perhaps you know them by heart. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, for the light of truth, for the energy of action, and the flames of resistance. Let us gather and worship with one another this morning. And now I want to invite all the children and young at heart to come forward for a story. Rob is in Colorado. So you are stuck with me, Brooklyn. Okay. Okay. So how many people know what a wisdom tale is? Or a folk tale? Nice. Okay, what's a wisdom or a folk tale? It's a song or a story that is spread. You're right. It's spread over many times and places by many different people, right? So does that story maybe sometimes change as it goes along? Yeah. So sometimes you like have stories like Cinderella stories. There's many, many different types of Cinderella stories, but they're all kind of similar to one another. So this Beauty and the Beast is another one. A lot of those Disney movies come from traditional folk tales. So this is a folk tale from India, which is about as far away from Utah as you could possibly get. But we're going to go into their culture and hear the following story about a cracked pot. So long, long ago, and maybe just last week, there lived a man whose job it was to haul water from the stream uphill to his master's house many times each day. Now, we probably wouldn't use the word master's house in this community, but that's how the wisdom tale goes, right? So we could also interpret that and say, long, long time ago, there was a man who was hired to work for somebody, and he was paid excellent wages and had full benefits and paid vacation time and sick leave. And his job was to bring the water to the house because for whatever reason, they hadn't installed indoor plumbing. Yes. It's a very old story. It's true. It's a very old story. So anyway, this fully benefited employee of the house brought the water. And to do this work, the water bearer had 2 large pots that hung from each end of a pole. So it's like this long pole, and then the pots hang on these ropes or chains. And so he carries the water up to the house every day, balanced on the top of his shoulders. And both the pots were exactly the same. So like maybe they're like these giant terracotta pots. But one of them was perfect, and the other one had a crack in it. So one of them had a crack in the pot, and one of them was perfect. The one with the crack in it would leak a little bit of water as he walked up the hill. In fact, it lost half of the water as he walked up the hill. Now, this caused a little bit of rivalry between the 2 pots. It's a magical story, right? The pots are talking to each other. The perfect pot was proud of its accomplishments and loved to brag about them. This pot also loved to point out to the cracked pot how much he was better than the other one. That no matter how hard the water bearer worked, the cracked pot only ever managed to deliver a half portion to the employer. So this bullying by the perfect pot made the cracked pot feel a little insecure and a little bit ashamed of his imperfection, and he was miserable that he could only accomplish half of what the other pot was able to do. So one day, the cracked pot spoke to the employee with all the benefits and sick time that they were receiving while they were not on break, and said to the water bearer, "I'm ashamed of myself, and I must apologize to you for being cracked, for my inability to carry the water all the way up the hill. You work so hard, and I feel like I am a failure to give you the full value for your effort." Now, the water bearer listened and looked upon the pot that was cracked with compassion and said, as we walk back up to our employer's house this time, I want you to pay attention to the beautiful flowers growing along the path. And indeed, as I went back up the hill, the cracked pot did take notice of the sun warming the beautiful wild flowers all along the side of the path. And the cracked pot felt a little bit cheerful, sort of. But at the end of the trail, the pot again felt miserable and apologized once more for having lost half of his water. The water bearer turned to the pot and said, look, I'm afraid, please don't touch that, honey. I'm afraid you not understand what I was trying to show you. Did you not notice that there were flowers only on your side of the path and not on the perfect pot's side? That's because I planted flower seeds on your side of the path. And every day while we walk back and forth from the stream, you watered the flowers. I have known about your crack for a very, very long time. And I could have crafted a new pot. But because of your flower, we've been able together to grow beautiful flowers and with them bless many tables. Without you being just the way you are, where would we have found and cultivated such beauty? So what do you think about that? So the cracked pot thinks it's a liability, so there's something wrong, but it turns out there's not something wrong, right? Yes.
Well-paid water carrier could have planted seeds on the other side of the pot to show that the pot without a crack didn't seem to grow, but
He could have done that too. That would have been double proof that the cracked pot was having a benefit. That's right. Any other thoughts that you want the adults to hear about this story? What do you think it's important for the adults behind you to know about this story? That it's a story, right? That we believe in economic justice here in this community. Anything else? All right, well, I know that this morning you have some fantastic art projects to do downstairs while Rob is away. And Rob will be back next weekend with stuff. So why don't we sing you out and go from there? Okay. Who wants to lead the singing with me? No one? Okay, well, we'll just sing you out. Go now in peace, go now in peace. The Spirit of God's around you, everywhere, everywhere you may go. It's you, yeah.
Hello again. For those of you who arrived a little bit later, my name is Scott Renshaw. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And I'm up here this morning to share a few words about why I give financially in support of South Valley. I've been a member of this community for more than 20 years, and I've given variations on this little speech many times over that span. So in a way, the hardest part of talking about it is finding something new to say. As a professional writer, there's nothing I hate more than feeling like I'm repeating myself. How many different ways are there to share the same story? That my wife and I came here for the first time when our first child was in a baby carrier, and that both of our children subsequently went through the religious exploration program here from preschool to high school graduation. That after many years without being a member of any church, I thought at first I was coming just because I wanted a spiritual home for my kids, only to find that I too needed something to nourish me spiritually. That I subsequently found myself involved in roles like leading our goods and services auction, serving on the board of trustees, even learning to do things entirely out of my comfort zone, like introducing myself to strangers, and asking people to give money. All of those things are part of my story, and all of those things are true, but while those parts of the story remain the same, it's also true that the reasons behind why I give seem to change from year to year. There are years when I think about the example I want to set as a longtime member and leader for how to give generously and without anxiety. There are years when we're preparing, say, to call a new minister, and I want to be part of painting an appealing picture of who we are as a congregation. There are years, like in the wake of our COVID shutdown, when I think about the need to help carry us through a time of struggle when others might not be able to. The giving itself is sort of second nature now, built into our family budget and our values, but the why is a little more malleable. So as I sat down yesterday to write this, and I thought about the why for this particular year, the first thing that came to mind is, who are all of you people? Now, before that sounds too accusatory, let me clarify that for most of the month of January, for personal and professional reasons, I wasn't at in-person services. When I came back at the beginning of this month, I was kind of shocked to look around and realize how many people there were here that I'd never exchanged a single word with. Some were faces that I knew had been around for a few or even several months, but that I hadn't gotten to know yet, and others were clearly brand new. But the sheer number of faces that fell into those categories was kind of staggering to me. I've watched a dozen or more young children come up to the front for story time, and almost all of them were from families still relatively unfamiliar to me. Who are all of you people? There are times in the life of this congregation when we're suddenly blessed with a surge of new attendees. Maybe that happened this time because of a backlog of curious people who would have come earlier, but we weren't having in-person services at the time. Maybe some of it is related to those who see reactionary policies enacted in our state and around the country and don't want to feel isolated anymore in their own beliefs. Maybe like me all those years ago, you're just here for the kids, or so you think. The reason you walked in the doors for the first time isn't particularly important, though. What is important is that you thought it was necessary for you to walk through those doors, or doors like these somewhere else, and that these particular doors were open so that you could do so. So this year, I decided that why I give is because of you. All of you people I don't know yet. All of you people still wearing stick-on name tags. All of you who had no idea before I stood up here that I had given a version of this speech before, because to you it's all new. I give so that your children can have the same experience my children had, growing up in a place where they learned about living their values and could trust that their whole, authentic selves would be loved and respected. I give so that someone out there can have the same growth opportunities I've had participating in the life of this community. I give because someone else was willing to give more than 20 years ago so that I and my family could walk through those doors. I know that for a lot of longtime members, it can be strange and a little intimidating to be surrounded by so many new faces. Just remember how intimidating it was to be the new face, and how welcoming all of them gives our mission a chance to thrive. Every one of you is a story waiting to be told, just like mine, about why South Valley was important and needed at a particular moment. I'm giving this year, and I'm asking all of you to give, so that we continue being a place where those stories are told. And maybe next year, or even next week, if you get invited, it will be one of those stories that we'll hear. In that spirit, it's time for our offertory today. This community, our church and its many ministries, are only made possible by the gifts you give of your time, your talent, and your treasure. Many of you pledge monthly to support our work, and for this, we are grateful. Your gifts help ensure that we are able to live our values of love and justice in the world outside. Part of our ministry at South Valley includes sharing our Sunday worship offering with a charitable organization that aligns with our principles and values. This month, we are sharing with the other side. Please join me in reading our offertory words printed in your order of service. We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together, we share the wealth of this community and sustain it with our gifts. We will now accept our offering. For those at home, you are invited to use the giving link in the online order of service, and I invite our ushers today to come forward at this time.
On this shining night of star-made shadows round, kindness must watch for me this side the ground. Late year lies down the north. All is healed. All is health. High summer holds the hearts all Sure on this shining night I weep for wonder, wandering far alone of shadows on the stars.
For all we have found the courage to give, may we be truly grateful. May these gifts be a blessing on the other side on their important work and within this community. I invite you now to join me for our ritual of joys and sorrows here at the altar. For those of you familiar with our ritual, please feel free to come forward when the music starts. For those who are new, please join us in this ritual. You can come up to the altar and place a stone in the water to represent and hold that which is in your heart, be it something that brings you a bright smile of joy or something that is heavier in your heart. And together we create this monument to our shared concerns and joys and wind together the community of compassion that we are. 2 final stones, one for that which remains unspoken. And for those in our online community, you are seen, you are heard, you are known, and you are joined with us in community. Pray with me. I know maybe some of you don't know what prayer is or not sure what prayer is, but in this community, we define prayer as just a conversation where we speak about what is necessary in our hearts. And you can just do that quietly within your own. And so I like to close my eyes when I pray because it helps me to speak extemporaneously. Feel free to leave your eyes wide open if you want. So, Spirit of life, mystery of the world that goes by so many different names and sometimes no name at all. Beautiful earth, beloved community. We seek in this moment to invoke the sacredness that is this time and this place, particularly this time and this place, in a beautiful and beloved valley, in a beautiful and beloved time that is also a time of disruption, interruption, change, and sorrow. Spirit, our hearts break this week in so many ways. Some of our hearts this week have broken for deeply personal reasons. To those we claim and name as our own. May the hearts in this room find comfort and balance and connection and healing. Spirit, the community of this church's heart also breaks for the ways in which the values of love and justice are trampled upon. We hold in our hearts closely and walk in solidarity with our transgender brothers and sisters and siblings who are facing a very difficult reality on the ground in here from legislatures that do not understand what it is like or what is needed in order to thrive as a human being who is transgender. And Spirit, our heart joins with all the beings that are watching the fate of our beautiful Salt Lake be argued about. And Spirit, we just ask that you would give us as advocates for the beauty of this earth, the courage to stand still and to hold out that restoration is possible, so that all may enjoy a healthy life here in the valley. We pray these things out loud because we know that meditation helps us to listen and prayer helps us to learn to speak that which is needed and that which is necessary. And if we cannot speak it in our hearts, how can we speak it to the world at large that needs to hear that love and justice is our work as a faith community? We pray for the courage and the connection of community that will support us as we continue to hold up those values of love, compassion, justice, equity, inclusion, and safety for those who are on the margins of our society and who need us as a community to stand in solidarity and to walk the path towards liberation and justice for all. And so we close our prayer with this. We protest and we lament and we move forward as a community, knowing that we are the ones we have been waiting for. Amen. So as Scott spilled the beans this morning, we are indeed launching our pledge campaign today. I realized this on Thursday. And so I want to just start by saying that I know, we all know, that the discussion of money is rather a sensitive topic because we have been socialized to believe that money or lack thereof is a source of shame, of guilt, or struggle, depending on what the bottom line says in our life. We have been steeped in a cultural tea that tells us that we cannot serve both God and money, but that economic success is possible for any and all through hard work and dedication. We have been taught that we should not want what we cannot have, but if we do not have what others have, we should go out and get it, or at least pretend to get it by taking out a credit card loan. And we have been taught that money does not buy happiness. So the fact that people on yachts appear to be quite happy is to be overlooked by those of us who do not currently own yachts. Add to this our personal wounds, our personal journeys, our family histories, and it gets even a little bit more muddled. Some of us have endured decades of financial stress due to unjust social systems. Other of us in this community may be recovering from abusive financial relationships with faith communities and faith leaders that held salvation and redemption as ransom for our giving and pressured us to give outside of our means, which in turn further entrenched the wealth and power of church institutions. We know that these contradictory messages mask those unjust social structures that penalize the poor and the more marginalized, anyone who is not born white, male, already wealthy, already endowed with U.S. citizenship, educated and classed at or above the upper middle class level. We also know that we are living in the wealthiest country that has ever existed. We know, too, the fear of economic instability. Few of us have lived without periods of unemployment or financial uncertainty. And we know that undoing systems of harm requires telling the truth about the rising economic inequality that is driving the political divisions between us. And here's another thing that we know. We know, as faithful people, as Unitarian Universalists, that the work to bend the arc of history towards justice requires all of us hanging on it and pulling it toward a vision of beloved community. And that here, in this sanctuary, in this community, is a place where we learn how to hang on to that arc of history. That this is a place where we directly make that happen. But knowing the truth and being able to speak the truth, such that liberation towards justice emerges first, requires that we know how to listen to our own wounds and those of the world, and to meet them in that singular and beautiful place where the needs of the world meet the skills and the talents of our heart and our hands and our voice. It can feel complicated to speak up around the silences that have grown up and among us when it comes to money and power and privilege, because it makes us feel vulnerable, perhaps a little unsafe. And I will suggest to you that safety is not the goal of a religious community. Safety is not the goal of a religious community or a nonprofit organization. Our goal is the creation of a beloved community. And by beloved community, I mean a place where spiritual depth and strong character are cultivated, where justice and equity and compassion are the markers of our relationships, where we have choices when we're in disagreement with each other, choices other than blowing up and walking away, choices to work towards amends and towards forgiveness. This is a community where we learn to hang on that arch of justice. Justice begins here, and it requires both vulnerability and honesty so that we may individually and collectively begin to heal. This is our mission, our vocation, and our call as a faith community. It is our good news that we can change the shape of history by collectively focusing our energy on justice and liberation. It's solid ground upon which to build, that we can build a better future right here and right now, and help create the steps that are necessary for the next generation to come along and build upon what we learn and know and promote. I would suggest to you that there is so much healing happening in this community. It is palpable every Sunday morning as we gather to worship together. The vibrancy of us lights up this sanctuary, and it's spreading. Our reputation as a good place for seekers, our reputation as a beacon of hope for those who feel left out or behind by their childhood faith, our reputation as a place where we practice justice, imperfectly for sure, but with deep dedication. These aspects of us, these are sounding a call throughout the valley that all folks of goodwill are welcome, that they're welcome here, and that by being here, we can, we are, and we do make a difference in each other's lives, and that of the community beyond our walls. Justice is the heart of this community, and love is our guide. Our continued assurance of solid ground requires taking seriously the role of capital in supporting and sustaining the work and the viability of this congregation. Access to a flow of adequate, heck, even abundant capital is the single most important aspect of the business side of our nonprofit. It undergirds and supports all of the programmatic aspects of our organization and ensures that the staff and the leadership have the resources they need in order to move our mission from vision to reality. It provides stability in times of uncertainty. It provides continuity in terms of staffing, so that our staff are adequately and appropriately compensated and cared for so that they can contribute to the cause of South Valley while living an appropriate life. But it's more than that. And it's also all of that. It's about the work that we are attempting to do internally as a community. Last fall, when we launched our anti-racism task force, I thought about this very deeply. Anti-racism work is primarily focused in this community right now on our internal practices and policies, so that we can grow our competency multiculturally. This internal work is slow, sometimes it's confusing, and often frustrating. Some of our white people in this congregation have left the congregation in frustration that we are not already there yet, that we are not already multiculturally competent. I understand the disappointment and the frustration that drives that sentiment. White people of the liberal persuasion deeply desire to be multiculturally competent. But the work of dismantling unconscious bias and creating trust with people of color is not going to adhere to a white agenda. We have many visitors on a Sunday morning, and an increasing number of them are people of color, but many or even most do not stay for long. Because the promise of welcome can often turn to a feeling of pressure to speak constantly to issues of racial justice, And it seems to me that our BIPOC friends are rather exhausted by this. They come here seeking sanctuary with us. But the ways that we have traditionally created sanctuary as a predominantly white tradition are not necessarily comforting or inviting to people of color. So if we want to become multiculturally competent, our styles of worship, our decision-making processes, and our theologies are going to have to expand. We're going to have to widen our circle a little bit more. And that's hard, because change is often hard, because often the very thing that you find when you came and joined this congregation 10 or 15 years ago is the thing that might need to change or expand now to welcome new people. So this requires investing in training, in leadership development for lay leaders and staff, such that we can begin to dissolve barriers that keep us from becoming competent. We know that it is possible to create beloved community, but it's not linear. And it's not going to have an outcome that we can check a box on. Our visions this year include also loving those children that come to the front of the sanctuary. In a time and a place when many communities are declining, ours is thriving. In fact, it seems as if the children are multiplying just while they sit up here at the front. So we look to be expanding our religious education programming this year. That includes staffing increases for our Director of Religious Exploration, but also perhaps looking ahead to see what we can do to make it so that parents do not have to always go downstairs with their children on a Sunday morning. We have long relied on parents of young children to be our primary teachers in religious exploration. Perhaps it is time to explore that and to shift that, so that when those children grow up and move off to high school and college, their parents actually stay in this community because they are connected to the vibrancy of this community right here and right now and all along the way. It's easy to fix that problem, I have to say. It's easy to fix the childcare problem. While the nation can argue about childcare and the childcare system, I know that we can actually fix that problem here in this community. So I invite you to consider what you might be able to do to contribute to a religious exploration program, especially if you are an adult that does not have children in your home. Perhaps it's time for you to step in so that those parents of young children can come and stay and worship on a Sunday morning. Volunteers are, of course, the heart of this community, but supporting our volunteers well is critical to the long-term vitality of all of us. Leadership development and smart staffing to support the more technical sides of church operations and investments in membership and volunteer management are but a few of the dreams beginning to be articulated within this community and from the board. I'll speak a little bit more succinctly to the technical demands. We all know that the technical demands for multi-platform worship and social media are here to stay. We must ensure that our technology plan includes the replacement of equipment, upgrades to existing systems, and technical expertise to manage those systems. We are blessed with some very talented sound and AV people in the back of the sanctuary. I just want to make sure that they know that you know how hard that job is on a Sunday morning. And that as we look to expand and add screens and more multi-platform communication between ourselves and those who are at home, that job is expanding. And it may make good sense to invest in some moderate staffing to support that, so that our volunteers can enjoy being in worship rather than tasked with things that may be outside of their professional capacity. And here is the thing, and Scott mentioned it, who are all of you people? I often ask that sometimes on Sunday morning, who are all these people that are coming? It's the good news of our congregation. We are actually growing. But growth is a very difficult thing for churches to manage, right? Growth can mean growth in numbers. It can mean growth across the types of people that are coming, either diversity of ethnicity or diversity of generations, or it can be deepening of our spiritual journeys together. All of those are important. My favorite is the spiritual deepening part. But we also have to be ready and capable of welcoming and connecting people to this community in ways that are meaningful. Our Starting Point series is a great example of that. We've been training lay leaders to lead that program, and we need to continue to expand and offer that kind of training and support so that everyone who comes into this community can feel connected and can feel that joy that is possible here. All of those things, from technology to supporting our RE programming to supporting the technical pieces, these are how we also include each other, how we make an inclusive environment by ensuring that we're delivering our messaging in ways that are accessible to people, regardless of their ability. With the addition of screens, we'll be able to add closed captioning. And our board has identified a goal as adding a loop hearing system down the road so that those who are hard of hearing will not struggle, either here or at home, to participate in our services. In a time and a place when isolation and disconnection and dislocation seem to be rampant in our world, this community can be an antidote to that. We can be a place of healing and connection. We can be a place where we hang on that arc and mend it just a little bit further towards justice. And that requires that we be honest about how it takes to run a church. I'm not sure how exactly we're always going to get this done, but I believe that this community has always gotten it done. We've been around for 40 years. Sometimes by the skin of our teeth, I'm told, have we made it through. But we have made it through. We're 40 years old now as a congregation. And to me, that says, we're middle-aged. Time to start investing. We're no longer a teenager. Time to start investing. Time to take seriously that we need to balance our checkbook and, put aside money for, medical expenses and things like that. I'm just in a church, building expenses. This building is a fantastic and beautiful building, but it needs support and it needs love. I'm sure you all have noticed the love that it needs in the parking lot, perhaps. So as we celebrate our 40th year, I'm pleased to share with the congregation that part of what we will be doing this year in our pledge drive is setting aside and building a real commitment to the reserves of this congregation so that we are not caught surprised when it comes to maintenance that needs to be done or upgrades that need to be done. And we're going to be spending some time thinking about whether or not a capital campaign makes sense for this community at this time. So here's the nitty-gritty on the pledge campaign. Thank you to Brian and Scott for assigning this task to me. We're going to ask everyone to consider increasing their pledge by 5 to 10%. Our goal is to have everyone participating. Everyone participating. The goal is ultimately for everyone to be able to get to 5% giving. Some of us are already there. Some of us will have to work on that. I want to remind those who are already at the 5% level, I want to remind you that there's no maximum gift allowed to South Valley. And I also want to say with equal joy in my heart that every gift matters. Every gift matters to this community. I don't care if it's $10 a month or $5 a month. Every gift matters. What matters is that the gift is significant to you. So the goal that I set as a minister for this community is 100% participation. This is not a community of force. This is not a community of guilt or shame. This is a community of invitation. So the ask is that you give within a way that is significant to you. Everything is welcome here because we are the ones that we have been waiting for, and we are the ones who make this place possible. South Valley exists as both a vision and a reality of this vision and reality of love and justice in the world. Our founders here in Salt Lake Valley and those reaching back across the generations of Unitarians and Universalists in this country call us to hold on to enduring truths, such as the universality of love, the importance of inclusive democratic processes, and trusting our lived experiences as a source of wisdom. Our vision for the future of this community, as articulated in our mission statement, is to remain a beacon of hope. A beacon of hope for those seeking a new way of relating to self, one another, and the world. We exist outside of traditional doctrines and creeds. We rely instead on that funny word called covenant, or co-promising, promising to walk and to journey and to travel with one another through all the days of our lives, because this is the place and this is a community of people that we are choosing to do life with. You are choosing to do life with each other. And I think that would be enough for any community to accomplish well and good this year and any year for which we seek to remain and to grow that beacon of hope. Whether someone ever enters those doors or they just drive by, just knowing this place is here is salvific for many. And I know it liberates those who hang here and bend that arc towards justice together. May it be so, and amen.
And fourth verse. Oh, 10, 15. The days we took with sorrows and burdens in my heart, the troubles which at every turn I know I can't go on, but sorrow tears my soul long, and burdens make me strong. The troubles with every turn, I know I can go on. Fourth verse. And though the journey's on, the destination's in, troubles which at every turn, I know I can go on.
Please remain standing as you're willing in mind, body, or spirit to join us in our actions as we extinguish our chalice. The words are in your order of service. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth, or the energy of action. We hold each other in our hearts until we meet again.
Know that you are loved. I love you. you love you. Let's rest in that today and make of this place a place we're sustaining for the generations that will come, that will never know our names, but will know that we rose up with a strong and sound voice and resonated through the community, a beacon and a light of joy and love, so that no one would ever know that they were alone, because they're not. Let's close it out.
1058 in the Teal Hymn Book. And we're going to do it